What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. I don't know how I missed this article, but I thought I would go over it today. This is relating to the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon telling journalists how to interrogate the Tories during interviews, which is absolutely incredible and should go to show Scotland what the SNP would be like if they actually held unrestricted power in Scotland. Because believe me, they would be censoring the media within a year or two. I am almost certain of this. And given what the article is saying here, it would seem to be the truth. It headlines, "An absolute disgrace. SNP slapped down for telling journalists how to interrogate Tories." Nicola Sturgeon has been condemned for sending correspondence out telling journalists how she wants them to interview and interrogate Boris Johnson's Tory party. Reporters north and south of the Scottish border hit back at a flurry of emails they received from the SNP telling them how to interview the Conservative Party. The National Union of Journalists, NUJ, also snapped back and told the SNP that journalists don't need advice on how to do their jobs from political parties. Journalists also flocked to Twitter to slap down the call, and so they should. I'm no fan of journalists or the media for that matter, but I don't think political parties should be telling them how to interview the opposing parties. It sounds a bit like communist China if you ask me. Or possibly even a throwback to 1930s Germany. It's incredible, especially considering the Ramonas have been running around calling Boris Johnson like 1930s Germany. One said, "This is an absolute disgrace. We don't tell politicians how to do their jobs, so why on earth do they think they can tell us how to do ours?" And I would make him right on that one. They can't even do their own job correctly, let's be honest. Another slapdown comment saying reporters should heed advice from the SNP. He said heeding guidance from a political party on how to interview politicians. Say that out aloud to yourself. Yeah, I don't know if they did say that out aloud to themselves, but maybe they should have, because as I've said, it sounds like something you would hear in China. Or in the United Kingdom had Jeremy Corbyn won the last election. Thankfully, he didn't. What kind of country do you think you will get if you have journalists who heed partisan advice on their work? Well, I've already said it. You get China, the Soviet Union, or the United Kingdom if Jeremy Corbyn had just won the 2019 election. Another added, "How dare journalists be questioned or in any way criticised? No, they can be criticised, but not necessarily by political parties, and they shouldn't be questioned or told what to say in interviews, for obvious reasons I've already stated." The emails came from SNP spin doctors who issued advice on how to ensure journalists across the nation collude to get the Tories tied in knots over their position to a second go at a Scottish independence referendum, the Times reports. Well, unfortunately, you had a referendum in 2014 that Nicola Sturgeon herself says was once in a generation. So, we'll see you in 20 odd years, Sturgeon, even no matter how many votes you get at the end of the day. From what I can tell from Scottish people I know, a lot of people vote for you just to protest against Labour and the Tory parties. They don't necessarily want independence, or if they do, they don't want your form of independence. That is, get independence and then automatically become subservient to the EU. So it's not really independence, it's swapping one union of elected representatives for a union of unelected representatives. So yeah, take from that what you will. Maybe that's just the SNP's level of intelligence, but the Scottish people really don't agree with that, I'm sure. Especially if they actually want independence from the UK like she claims. I'm sure they don't want to be ruled by Brussels afterwards. Definitely not the fishermen, that's for sure. The email also cites an interview by STV correspondent Bernard Ponsby, who took the Tories to task for claiming Mr Johnson had a mandate to deliver his Brexit deal by delivering a majority of MPs, while also arguing that there should not be a second referendum because the SNP won less than 50% of the vote in Scotland. And no, SNP winning less than 50% of the vote in Scotland doesn't matter. Like I said, she lost the 2014 referendum. That was once in a generation. We'll see you in 20 years, as I've already said. And that's all Boris needs to say at the end of the day. The email said Bernard Ponsby highlights how easily Tories who try and assert that the SNP have no mandate for a second referendum can be tied in knots. It added, when interviewing them on the matter, please do not accept their assertions and move on. Boris Johnson and the Tories' undemocratic and untenable position should be rigorously scrutinised, which I have to admit seems a bit rich coming from Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP to call anyone undemocratic. They want to ignore the two referendums they've lost in the last 6 years. So yeah, pot and kettle once again, Nicola Sturgeon, you're a fucking idiot. John Toner, the Scottish officer for the NUJ, said professional journalists do not need guidance from any political party on how to do their jobs. How interviews are handled is a matter for the journalist and his or her editor. Yes, as we have seen by the BBC, ITV, Channel 4 and Sky News, with their bemoaning biased coverage against Brexit over the last few years. The claims of all political parties should be rigorously scrutinised, and it is not acceptable for one party to try and influence the degree to which other parties are scrutinised, obviously. The SNP said in a statement it was disappointing so many Tories appeared unable to accept the result or understand what it meant, which is once again a bit fucking rich coming from these people who haven't accepted the result of the 2016 referendum. How do these people forget that they've been unable to accept results for years? We simply highlighted to broadcasters that the SNP won the election overwhelmingly. No, you didn't. You got 55 seats compared to Boris Johnson's 360 odd. That doesn't mean you won the election, does it, sweet cheeks? Of course not. 55 MPs to 360. It's not even close. You actually have no chance of winning the election. The Scottish elections are next year, if I remember correctly. These were Westminster ones. You can never win them. Like Joe Swinson, that's fantasy politics. Only difference is, Joe Swinson got kicked to the curb. It's a shame you didn't. The emails come after new Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle, took aim at the SNP today. The new Speaker humiliated the party by not selecting an amendment to derail Brexit, and they could have selected the amendment, but it would have been rejected by the Tory majority. We'll see you later, so it wouldn't have passed anyway. Which I expect is why Lindsay Hoyle did it, and he was probably giving the government a chance, since John Bercow did so much against the government and its wishes last time around. Miss Sturgeon's SNP sought to ensure that the government could not take the UK out of the EU without the consent of the Scottish Parliament. The group wanted the second reading of the Brexit deal to be scrapped because 62% of voters in Scotland supported remaining in the EU. Doesn't matter how many percent of people in Scotland supported remaining in the EU, only 48% of the entire 4 nations of this country voted to stay in the EU. So they lost. That's the end of it. So suck it up and get over it, you snivelling shitweasels. But I guess if this email report is true, the SNP are essentially acting like the fucking Nazis right now, or Communist China. Take your pick which one, but they're trying to essentially control the media. It's absolutely incredible, and I'm glad the world slapped them down for it on Friday. Like I said, I missed this one at the time, but I thought it deserved me going over it. But on that note, I will end the video there, guys. I want to thank our PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar, and YouTube members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell, and share this video as it helps the channel a lot, and I'll see you all in the next one.
And Corbyn neutral by Christmas.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.